All right, thank you so much for joining. We are live. I'm Shovik. I'm with Sam. Most of you already know us. We have done plenty of these videos in the last couple of weeks and months. I'm trying to undo the damage that I did yesterday. By the way, if you weren't there yesterday, my session started 10 minutes late because I was so dumb that I forgot to put myself on stream, and I was very shocked that nobody could hear me. I'm committed to not making the same mistake. So if the video is okay, if the audio is great, please let us know in the comments and we can jump right in. So if the video is okay, if the audio... Awesome. Tons of people in the chat. So we're going to get started. We are talking timeline today, and the main motivation behind this video um, was that we were getting a lot of basic questions. If you weren't live, day before yesterday on Friday, I did a video with Maria Wigvilla. She is one of my favorite admission consultants from HBS. She runs a product called Applicant Lab, and we were sort of deep diving on business school rankings and how useful or useless they are. Go check that video if you haven't checked it yet. But one of the things that I saw in that video was we were getting a lot of comments on very basic application stuff. We were getting like, oh, when to apply, how to apply, like very basic stuff, which we didn't really get to on that video. So I wanted to do a more basic, more beginner level MBA video just to give out the basics of if you are thinking about business school, when should you think about it? What are the necessary steps to go about it? And both Sam and I applied to business schools almost 2 years ago. The process hasn't changed, so I think we could share something. We were also going to take a lot of questions today, so feel free to keep posting questions. Don't wait for us to go to the end for a Q&A. Keep posting questions, and we will get to them after about 20 minutes after going through some of the timeline. So just for people who just joined, I'm Shovik. I'm a second-year MBA student at the Michigan Law School of Business. I'm almost done with business school, just graduating in quarantine. So it's a really funny time. Sam is my classmate, but Sam, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit more about what you did before business school.
Hey, everybody. Sam, second-year student at Michigan as well. Before business school, I was a lawyer, criminal defense lawyer. I made the switch to business school, and then hopefully still going to Microsoft for full-time.
Awesome. Sam's going to Microsoft in Seattle. I'm going to Amazon in Seattle, and we're probably going to be roommates again. So it's going to be great. So the main thing that I wanted to chat with you guys today was business school timelines, and it's different for different people. It's different for different rounds, so it can be a little bit tricky. So I wanted to go over some of the basics. So Sam, I wanted to start with you first. Like, why don't you go ahead with your journey? Thinking about when you first thought of the MBA. How did you research? When did you look at applications? And what was your timeline? Like, when did you start researching, writing essays, writing resume, all of that stuff? Why don't you give us a download of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So business school was probably about a year and a half before I actually applied. I was a criminal defense attorney at the time from a undergraduate school that wasn't really ranked very highly, but high GPA, and from a pretty decent law school as well. But I didn't have many extracurriculars. So really my first goal was to kind of beef up my resume with public service stuff and some more business stuff as well. And so that's what I thought of first. I knew I wanted to get into the highest school I could. So I didn't really do too much deep dives into what the schools were at that time. But my first goal was to kind of beef up my resume. Once I did that, I then did a deep dive into studying for the Gmat because I was pretty much assumed I had to get the highest score I could. So I did about a 8 to 9 month study for the Gmat before I took it. And so I took the Gmat in the January in 2018, and I applied in 2018. I ended up taking the Gmat twice. The score that I got the first time was the score that I ended up sticking with. And then and I retook it, I think, in March of 2018. So then probably around April is when I really started thinking about essay writing and kind of getting a decent short list of schools that I wanted to apply to. And so really through that summer of 2018 was just hardcore writing essays, because a lot of them are similar, but it was really getting that core of what I wanted to say, especially for a personal statement. And then throughout that summer was constantly like refining just a tad which schools on that short list to keep, which schools to not. And then so around September of, no, I'm getting it wrong, 2017 is when I started. I believe August and September is when I started, dropping the applications. Dropping the applications to that fall. Then there was the interview process right after. And that all led through February of 2018 when I got accepted at Michigan and didn't want to do, and I applied all first round schools to try and give myself the best chance is what I thought. And I liked Michigan enough to not do anything in round two. And so that was kind of the timeline.
Right. Yeah, no, I had something similar too. I applied for the 2018 matriculation, so most of my stuff was in 2017. I was a reapplicant, so I had applied back in 2017, and I got into exactly like 0 schools. So I knew I had to like improve stuff. So I redid my GMAT. I took my GMAT in 2017 December. And I was very happy with my score, and I sort of thought that, okay, this is the score that I can safely apply to and get in schools. And my GMAT journey was a bit unconventional. Like, I'm from India, so it's hyper competitive. And I sort of knew how competitive it was because I was already involved in GMAT Club. I sort of knew the hardships that people go through while applying. So for me, it was all about volume. It was like a buffet, and I wanted to apply to as many schools as possible. I did not care about location. I did not care about fit. So I applied to all the top schools. I went through, like, in the top 15, top 20 programs, I probably applied to 12 of them. So my application process I knew was going to be very tedious, but I was very happy that the GMAT was out of the way. And I was only going to do round one because why not? Like, why would you do round two? Like, things were very conventional back then. And I think there is some value in applying to round two in the Hey, Sam,
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I think we ran into an internet issue. All right, so just let us know if you can hear us and see us again, and I'm going to continue to where I left off.
Yeah.
Think we should be good. Brian, I know you lost me for a second there, but I think I'm back. Just making sure that we're all good. Awesome. So yeah, so I sort of knew that, like, I'm going to apply to all the schools, and round one was objectively better for me than round two. And I just didn't want to go through all that anxiety of like, okay, which schools in round one, which schools in round two. So I sort of had made my intentions very clear to my boss, and she was very supportive, and she needed to be supportive because I was going to ask her to write 12 recommendations, which is not easy for someone who's busier than usual. So yeah, so I started working on my applications very early, even before the essays came out. So I was writing out skeletons. I was working on my resume. I was working on my goals, and this was all through I would say February 2017 to about the summer. And I think the essays came out in the summer, and then, like essays sort of come out in trickles. So Harvard would release their essays like right at the beginning, and so would Yale, and some school, Kellogg, would take their sweet time to release their application, right? So I sort of started working on the applications that were already there, starting in like June, July, and this was also the time when I was networking with other people who have already been current students or alums or people on GMAT Club. So just trying to learn more. And this was also the time when I wasn't really sure which schools I was going to apply to. So different schools, just researching more about them. So this one school that I didn't know anything about was the University of Washington Foster School of Business. And I wanted to get into tech, and I realized that's a fantastic school to go to if you want to go to tech. It's relatively easy to get in because they have a higher admission rate. So I was making all these choices, like in the top 25 schools, should you apply to Foster or should you apply to Ken and Flagler? And for me, those decisions were tricky. Then the essays came out, and I started applying. A big thing though was pushing my recommenders and making sure I project manage that whole process, because most schools would need 2 recommendations. So you would have to really be on top of that thing. Then September and October was when most of the deadlines were. So I applied well before the deadlines, and some of them would allow you to be flexible with recommendations, and so I took advantage of that. Then interviews start coming out late October all the way to like November, and then you sort of get interviews, and in December you find out whether you have been admitted. And I got a lot of admits, just so that like everybody's clear. I applied to, again, 12 schools in the top 15. I got in, I think 5 or 6 of them, and I was waitlisted in 2 of them. So overall, I had a really, really good outcome, I think. My first interview was Booth, and I was so excited. They waitlisted me and never took me off of it, but that's fine. I'm very happy to come to Ross. So that's sort of the basic of the timeline. And I'm going to take a few more minutes to just go over the round 2 timeline. It's very similar. So round 1 is generally in September and October of the previous year. Round 2, generally applications are due in January, which can be very tricky because it's right after the holidays. In fact, Ross used to be one of the few unfortunate schools who would have a Jan 2nd deadline. Like, what the hell? But they have changed it, and now it's Jan 5th or Jan 7th, which I think works better. So basically, everything remains the same. I would say 3 months before your deadline is a really good time to start, because the GMAT will take a while, writing essays will take a while, figuring out your resume recommendations and networking. All of that will take very similar times. All right, so we're getting a lot of questions. So that's sort of what I wanted to chat about, just general timelines, and definitely going to take questions today, because I was a little sad that we couldn't get questions the last time. We have about 100 people watching, which is a little bit ridiculous. It's a Sunday, but I'm very happy you guys are here. Feel free to ask questions. I'm going to take all of them. So Sam, I'm going to put the questions on the screen, right? So you can take a look at them too. And if you want to answer any of the questions, jump in. Otherwise, I will throw you some of these as well. So one question is, you started application before GMAT or after taking your GMATs?
After.
After. Yeah, same for me. But I know a lot of people who don't wait. So for example, let's say you want to apply in round 1 and it's July, and you still don't have the score that you want yet. Maybe you have a 680 and you want a 700. Nobody's stopping you from starting an application. They're a totally separate process. I would say if it's July, maybe early August, I would say you need to start your applications right now, regardless of your GMAT status, if you want to apply for round 1. And if you don't get a score, you can always push it to round 2. And all the work that you did on your application, they're not going to go away. You can still use them for round 2. information on the ISB, young leaders, and giving GMAT in pandemic situations. We did I think 3 videos on how the pandemic has affected GMAT, so go check those. ISB YLP, as far as I know, is still on. By the way, Sam, ISB is the biggest GMAT business school in India. They have a YLP program, which is similar to HBS 2+2. So basically, you can apply it right out of undergrad, and you get 2 years of work experience. Then you go to the school. All right. So how many schools did you apply to? Good question. I already answered this. I applied to 12 schools. What about you, Sam? How many schools did you apply to?
I think I did about 8 or 9. I think 9. I want to say
right.
9. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and name them. So I applied to Harvard. I applied to Wharton, Booth, Sloan, Kellogg, Ross, Stern, McCombs, Foster, and I think that's it. I don't think Columbia. Right, I applied to Columbia. So those are the 12 schools. My status was I interviewed for Booth, Sloan, Ross, Stern, McCombs. I applied to Tuck and got interviewed at Tuck. And finally, I was waitlisted at Booth, and they never got back. So that's a rejection. I got waitlisted at Sloan, and they accepted me in July, which was ridiculous. I got in at Ross, I got in at Tuck, got in at Stern, McCombs, and Foster. What about you, Sam? You cool with sharing your schools?
Yeah, absolutely. So I applied to Haas, Booth, Kellogg, Michigan, MIT, Stanford, Wharton, or not Stanford, Wharton, Duke. I think that was it for round 1.
Right.
Yeah, got interviews at Haas, Booth, Michigan, and then Kellogg and Tuck, but a lot of people get that.
That's brilliant.
And got waitlisted at Booth, got into Ross, and then didn't get into anything else, and then didn't get off the wait list for Booth.
Right. Cool. More questions coming in. Is it worth for an aspiring entrepreneur who already tried and failed in scaling an idea to an MBA school? Worth it? I mean, will end up in a manager? Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's totally worth it. A lot of people from failed startups come to business school. Business school is, I like to think, it's full of failures, which is not a bad thing. I mean, it basically gives you a refresh, and you can start your own stuff. Sam had his own startup. Do you want to chat about that a little bit?
I did. My family and I were selling my mom's cookies for about 2 years.
And you guys almost got into Whole Foods.
We almost did. We were selling in grocery stores, cafes across the state of Florida in the United States. We're on the cusp of getting into Whole Foods.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think worth it, worth it is a question. And then also, Nikhil, I think you got to think about what do you want to do? What's going to bring you meaning? What's going to bring you happiness? So if you're including that in worth it, then that's good. If not, then definitely think about those things.
Right. Okay. I'm going to take one more question from Nikhil. Nikhil, I think, has asked about 10 questions so far. Nikhil, this is your last shot. This is your last question. What was the GMAT score and how long did you prep? My GMAT score, my semester that I applied with was 760. I prepped for a long time. I think I made a lot of mistakes. I was looking at GMAT for a long time because I was involved in GMAT club. I was taking the test for fun. But I think one big mistake that I made, and a lot of people do that too, is stretch out their prep. I think the GMAT is more of a sprint than a marathon. A lot of people disagree, but that's fine. I think 2 to 3 months of really focused prep is a better idea than stretching it out for like a year, 2 years. So that's just my opinion. All right, so very basic question. That's fine. We are here for basic questions. How much does the GMAT impact your MBA application compared with undergrad GPA? So I have an idea about this, and I'll give this question to you too, Sam. If you're from India or if you're from an international university, which has some sort of an obscure grading system, I think the undergrad GPA doesn't matter at all. Because Americans have no idea what that GPA means. Unless you went to a very famous international school which scales into a 4.0 GPA, nobody has any clue. So the GPA becomes irrelevant almost, and the GMAT takes over as it becomes very important. Sam, what are your thoughts on it? I'm sure GPA
Yeah.
matters to you.
I mean, I had an extremely high GPA, but it was from a school that wasn't, not on anybody's radar in the United States. So, I mean, I think the GMAT score matters big time. I don't think it matters which demographic you're in. You want to shoot for the highest possible.
Right, which brings us to our next question. What range of GMAT would be comfortable for top 5-10 programs? I think it's a hard question. I think, again, you should be able to score as high as you possibly can. But if you want a range, I would not be comfortable. If you're an Indian, I would not be comfortable if your GMAT is not at least a 730. So I think 730 is the floor at Ross. So especially among guys. And we only have like, I think, one or two guys with 730. I think the average Indian GMAT score is about 750 and above. And even if you're in the US, I would say if you need to go to Wharton or Kellogg, a 720, 730, 740 would make you feel more confident. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I agree. If you're in the US, I think I had a 720. But I didn't feel necessarily confident those top schools, and
Correct.
didn't get into them except for Ross. So I would say, yeah, if 730, 740 would have been nice, or definitely 740 or above would have been very nice as a U.S. student.
Right. All right, so we're going to take more questions. By the way, just a shameless plug, like the video if you can. That helps us with YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to the channel. That helps you because we put out videos almost every day. And some of them are about the GMATs, and some of them are about the MBA application. So help us and then help yourself. Okay, so I'm getting questions which are sort of targeted at me. Okay, wow, we're getting a lot of questions. We have 100 people. Okay, question for, okay, I can't even keep up with the scroll. Okay, how many referees do you have in total when applying to 10 plus business schools? So every single school except for Ross needed 2 recommenders, right? So I applied to 12 schools. So in total, I had 23 recommendations. It was tough. I had to sort of be on top of things. But the good thing is most of the schools ask the same questions. So your recommenders can actually like copy paste a lot of that content. So it was easier for that, but it was still a challenge to get them on top of all these recommendations. Another question for me: US MBA worth it after visa extends in India? We don't. As even if you want to say, and then we'll talk about this. Okay, so the visa situation has not changed. I think it's still a lottery, H-1B, and all that stuff. So the lottery just happened a few weeks back. I was fortunate enough to be selected. However, I could still have an RFE and I could still get rejected. So who knows? It's a big gamble. But having said that, most companies that you would recruit for, if you don't get the lottery, you will probably end up going to Europe or Canada or Asia. And some of them prefer that because in that case, you can spend a year or two there and come back to the US on an L1 visa, which is objectively a better visa than H-1B. So do that research. It's actually not that bad. I would still recommend business school very heavily. Question, I think this one's for you, Sam. So you gave your GMAT in December, or could be for both of us, and started working on your application after that to apply in round 1. Yes, but the only caveat here is that a lot of applications, you won't see them till the summer. So you can still start working on your stories, your goals, your resume, but the essays, they often come out late. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I agree. You can start thinking about, goals, where you came from, where you want to go, but you won't be able to mold it until you actually see those actual prompts, which they came around in early summer, late spring, from what I can remember.
Okay, so someone's asking me what was your CV like? I think you mean resume. We did a video on resume yesterday, so check that out. I had put in my resume there, and if you're really curious about Sam's resume, we can get him in the next time, and we can screen share his resume. Okay, won't be able to answer all these questions. They may have some Q&A later, but the questions you ask and answer the videos. Pablo, I love you. That's so true. Yes, a lot of these questions are answered in the previous videos. Thanks for saying that. How does the scholarship work? Or the general fee structure very high? So you get some merit-based scholarship. A lot of people have upped their scholarships now because business school applications are down, but I don't think you can influence it. You get a scholarship based on your profile. I think some schools like Harvard has need-based scholarship, but most business schools have merit-based scholarship. All right. Okay. More questions. How does business schools evaluate the new interim Gmat exam score? Will they consider it the same as the real Gmat at the test center? We discussed this. There's a few busy COVID-19 sections on Gmat Club. So go to Gmat Club, go to the forum, check on the right side. We have a COVID-19 corner. We can get all this info. But we also did a video with Sam and Nikhil. Go check that out where we discuss some of the implications. My guess is that it will be considered the same thing because it's approved by the GMSC, so I don't think you'll have any problems. Some prospects on MBA, project management, real estate management. That's fair. It's a fair question. I think a lot of people go into those sectors. Sam, do you want to take that?
How are prospects for MBA, project management, real estate management? I think it really, well, with that, it depends on your background. It depends on the school you get into. I know Michigan has a strong one. UNC has a strong one. A lot of other ones have.
Columbia has an extremely strong real estate program. And if you look at my video that I did with Maria from Friday, check that out because she takes the real estate example in Columbia. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, I'm going to leave this to you, Sam. I'm tired of talking. Hi, both. Is it good to take professional help from admission consultants if one is especially looking for scholarships?
I think it's good to take some help from admission consultants if you can afford it, just to get your feet wet and get kind of the train going on the tracks. I mean, it may help for scholarships in terms of the more you work with them, the more your essay, the more your resume, the more your profile will be polished. But it's not a necessary, but it would help your application look more polished, which would probably put you in better shape for a scholarship.
Awesome. Okay, more questions. Okay, we already took visa. I'm going to take 3 more questions, sort of running at the 30-minute mark. How to overcome the low GPA issue? Again, if you're from an international university in India, depends. If you have a 4.0 GPA and you have like a 2 point something, it's going to be challenging, man, because that GPA is very easily transferable. The best way to do that, get a high Gmat score. That's it. That's the only way. And be prepped to explain that. Like maybe you worked while you were in undergrad. Maybe you were doing some research that sort of, as I say this, I know most of that is not true, but don't lie. But just make sure that if you actually screwed up, own up to it. Like, hey, look, when I went to college, I didn't really focus on academics. So I've learned my lesson, took my GMAT, did well. So I think that sort of better represents some of my academic capabilities. All right, so I'm going to take a couple more questions here. Sam, this one's for you. Is there any preference given to first-round applicants as compared to second-round applicants for any business school?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, when I applied, I went in thinking there was, or just that it'd be less competitive, but then kind of on the backside of it, seeing that sometimes it may be less competitive in the second round because they hold out spots for that and less people apply. I think you want to be in round 1 or round 2, regardless, for any business school you apply to. So if ideal, I would apply in the earliest round you can. I don't think you can necessarily kind of game it between 1 and 2.
Right, that makes sense. Again, we're going to take maybe 2 more questions, but like the video if you can. That helps us out. Subscribe to the channel. That helps you out. That'll be very helpful if you do those 2 things. This is a good one. I think we touched on a little bit with the other videos. Like, what are our profiles? I'll go over my profile very, very quickly, and then I'll let Sam do it too. So I'm an engineer. I graduated way back in 2011. I did engineering, designing electrical engineering stuff for a giant engineering company called Siemens. I sort of pivoted from that to full-time teaching. I joined this organization called Teach for India, which is the same as Teach for America. I was a 2-year fellow in Bombay, where I was teaching middle school children. I really love teaching, and that's the only thing that I liked about that experience. And so I moved to education. So I was doing some strategy stuff for a school leadership startup. I was doing some ed tech stuff. So I was very interested in that. And after a few years, I sort of realized that I'm only doing education and I should be doing more. I'm still young. And that's why I came to business school. And I wanted to pivot to tech, and I wanted to do more in tech. So over the summer, I was at Apple. I was working with their App Store team. And for full time, I'm going to Amazon. That's what I came here to do. I want to broaden my experience and do things I haven't done before. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm from a legal background, which this question comes from. So I think it is positive for applications. It's a very unique feature. There were only 2 lawyers in our class at Michigan, and probably in the rest of the school. So very unique. It's nice to have some kind of management experience, and you can get that on the side through getting involved with the leadership teams of nonprofits. But yeah, I think it's a really good background, and people know how hard it is to be a lawyer, and also how analytical you have to be.
Right. Probably going to be the last question for today. I saw this question, but now I can't find it to put it up on the screen. It was a question about MIT and what they look for. Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to interview at MIT. It was good experience. Their admissions team had flown over to Delhi, and I had went there. So it was very similar. I think in my essays, I talked a lot about leveraging their labs. So they have like different labs like G Lab, I think E Lab, M Lab. I may be mixing up the names, but they have a lot of simulations and environment focused things. By environment, I don't mean nature, I mean like a virtual environment. And I was trying to pitch the idea that I'm going to bring in my ed tech experience, and I'm going to focus on getting a more of a technical, businessy thing in education, and they liked it. But they didn't like me enough, so they put me on a wait list. Awesome. So I'm going to close. Still have a lot of unanswered questions. I'm sorry about that. We did not anticipate that we were so popular. So what I would like you to do is give us a like. And if this gets, I don't know, like 50, 60 likes, I'm going to get Sam back on. And we're going to do another just Q&A because clearly people want these. Well, yeah, we'll definitely do that next week. Check it out. I'm going to do another video of some admission criteria with Maria. So she agreed to do a video on helping people out. We got multiple admits and deciding between multiple schools. So we're going to do a session on that next week. Most likely is going to be on Saturday or Thursday. And then we're also going to do a few sessions on the GMAT and the MBA. The schedule is going to go out tonight, so keep an eye out on that. And yeah, subscribe to the channel so that you're on top of things. If you go to the GMAT Club channel, right now we have set it up so that all the live streams are in the first row, so you know what are the sessions that are going to happen in the future, next week or the week after. All right, thank you so much for joining. Thanks, Sam, for being here again, and I'll see you guys next week.
See you, everybody. Stay safe.